the founding of the Federal Reserve in 1913 until the end of World War II, the money supply tended to grow at a higher rate than the growth of nominal GNP. From 1946 to 1980, nominal GNP tended to grow at a higher rate than the growth of the money supply, an indication that the public reduced its money balances relative to income. Until 1986, money balances grew relative to income. Since then, they have declined relative to income. Economists explain these movements by changes in price expectations, as well as by changes in interest rates that make money holding more or less expensive. What is the money supply? The U.S. money supply comprises currency and various kinds of deposits held by the public at commercial banks and other institutions such as thrifts and credit unions. The money supply measures M1, M2, and M3 are how the Federal Reserve classifies the different degrees of liquidity, or spendability, that different types of money have. The narrowest measure, M1, is restricted to the most liquid forms of money. It consists of currency in the hands of the public, travelers' checks, demand deposits, and other deposits against which checks can be written. M2 includes M1 plus savings accounts, time deposits of under $100,000, and balances in retail money market mutual funds. M3, a still broader measure, covers items that many regard as close substitutes for money. Why is the money supply important? An increase in the supply of money works both through lowering interest rates, which spurs investment, and through putting more money in the hands of consumers, making them feel wealthier and thus stimulating spending. Business firms respond to increased sales by ordering more raw materials and increasing production. The spread of business activity increases demand for labor and raises the demand for capital goods. In a buoyant economy, stock market prices rise and firms issue equity and debt. If the money supply continues to expand, prices begin to rise, especially if output growth reaches capacity limits. As the public begins to expect inflation, lenders insist on higher interest rates to offset an expected decline in purchasing power over the life of their loans. The opposite effect occurs when the supply of money falls or when its rate of growth declines. In that case, economic activity declines, and either disinflation, which is reduced inflation, or deflation, which is falling prices, is the result. What determines the money supply? Federal Reserve policy is the most important determinant of the money supply. The Federal Reserve affects the money supply by affecting its most important component, bank deposits. Here's how it works. The Federal Reserve requires commercial banks and other financial institutions to hold as reserves a fraction of their deposit liabilities. Banks hold these reserves as cash in their vaults, or ATMs, and as deposits at Federal Reserve banks. In turn, the Fed controls reserves by lending money to the banks and changing the Federal Reserve discount rate on these loans. The Federal Reserve also uses open market operations to either increase or decrease reserves. To increase reserves, the Federal Reserve buys U.S. Treasury securities by writing a check drawn on itself. The seller of the Treasury security deposits the check in a bank, increasing the seller's deposit. The bank, in turn, deposits the Federal Reserve check at its district Federal Reserve Bank, thus increasing its reserves. The opposite sequence occurs when the Fed sells Treasury securities. The purchaser's deposits fall, and in turn, the bank's reserves fall. If the Federal Reserve determines the magnitude of the money supply, what makes the nominal value of money in existence equal to the amount people want to hold? A change in interest rates is one way to make that correspondence happen. A fall in interest rates increases the amount of money people wish to hold, while a rise in interest rates decreases that amount. A change in prices is another way to make the money supply equal the amount demanded. When people hold more nominal dollars than they want, they spend them faster, causing prices to rise. These rising prices reduce the purchasing power of money until the amount people want equals the amount available. Conversely, when people hold less money than they want, they spend more slowly, causing prices to fall. As a result, the real value of money in existence just equals the amount people are willing to hold.